Welcome to the tour around Chicago. This movie is structured like that I will have the first part where I just give my opinion without have any knowledge of the buildings, and then a second part where I will give them with knowledge. And I hope you guys enjoyed this movie. So the first stop on my tour was the Manhattan Building that was completed in 1991. It has an impressive height with 16 stories, and it's very famous for its significant achievement in architectural innovation, because the designer William LeBron Jenney was a pioneer in the skyscraper building, because his first building, the home insurance building, is counted as the first skyscraper that ever was built. And Jenney used his expertise from his first building also for this building, for the Manhattan Building. It is very famous for its skeleton frame construction, because there was a very revolutionary technique by the time, because this method provides robust support for the building, especially for the height, so that it's really demonstrate a forward engineering technique. Moreover, we have on the bottom of the Manhattan Building's base, we have so kind of spooky little faces that are really looking very scary when you're under it. And these ones are really putting in the strength of the building and really tell the history. So yeah, we want to tell a history, and it's like, even when we scare people, we want to tell the history. Good evening, everyone. Today I take you guys with me through a walking through Chicago, and then we will figure out what I see and what I think about it. I will say what I think then when I'm later at home, because it's super windy, so that the sound is better. I will record everything what I have to say again at home and put it under the video, so I hope you will enjoy it. Right now I'm walking to the second stop, and around me I have the courthouse, which I will put in more information later, and then we will see what else we see on the way to the second stop. So like I said before, we just passed the courthouse, and we have here a federal building, we have banks around us up there. So I guess we are in the financial district, where you really see by really high office buildings and a lot of banks and federal buildings. So on the way to the second stop, I found something very interesting. And because that's so interesting, we are going right across the street and look it up and see what I found. So, just around the corner is what I saw. And because I found it so interesting, I decided to come on this side and check out what studios we have here. We are for sure in the financial district, so let's see what we have here. This is what we have. So just across the street we have our next stop, and when I walk around here I see a lot of banks, so federal banks, and a lot where I'm really interested to know why they all settled just here around this corner. And in the next, after this, I will give you the answer and will record what I figure out after doing some research. So I just came out of the Rockery building, and it was a super interesting building because it has a lot of architecture, and I tell you more about it, what I saw in 1, 2, 3. The next building that I visit was the Rockery building of Burnham and Root that was completed in 1886. And this is a primary example of the Chicago architect's ability to combine practicality and beauty, because it appears very solid from the outside, but in the interior it's surprisingly airy thanks to the cleverly designed light cord. And the two architects wanted to create a building that is very comfortable in an area without the modern comforts like air conditioning. So for that they created a kind of light cord that bring in natural light and air. And then Blair Kamin explains it like that they use all these practical needs that as they turned into it something that is very visual appealing, with features like glass ceiling and decorative elements. And then it is really a structure of innovation, and is also using a kind of skeletal frame construction technique from the inside. So we are still in the financial district because here we have US Bank, here Bank of America. Let us see what else we have for banks. There we have CIBC. I never heard of that bank, but I guess that's okay. So what else we have? I guess we have a lot of banks. But that's the first building up there that doesn't look like a bank. The one in the corner, and I'm wondering what it is. But I guess we will soon find out. I will keep you updated. So now that we got closer to the building, I see the name, and it's the Northern Trust Company. So another building that has to do with financial, what fits perfectly into this neighborhood. Like BMO Bank or the other bank we saw. So hopefully we get now out of the financial district and we see a new district. So it looks like that we are leaving the financial district because the building starts to be less fancy. They start to have less like structure and architecture. So I'm wondering what district we are now, but for sure, because what I see is also the buildings are so like more normal high buildings that we know, so they're not with stone and all mosaics or whatever we can see. So it's a little bit less, so I guess we slowly are transition into an area without that. So let's see what. So we are reaching the next spot, and the next spot is Target on Madison and State Street. And let's see what we see. So when we look to Target, we see that they have a lot of ornaments around the building. So on the bottom, that's a lot of ornament decorations that really show a lot of history. And let's try to go a little bit closer to get some close-ups of that. The next building that I visit is the Sullivan Center, where it's also called as Target, and it's located on State and Madison Street in downtown Chicago. And it's especially in the outside, it has really an impressive entrance because of all the design elements. And these design elements are from Louis Sullivan, and it was originally the Schlesier and Meyer department store before it later got renamed to the Carson Pierre Scott and Co. building, and it's now part of Target. It was completed in 1899, and later it also needed to be expanded because the stores got bigger. And it's also because the State Street really became a commercial area, and so they needed to make it bigger. It is really much oriented on cast iron on the entrances with the Beers of Sullivan's initials that are showcased into the design. And Sullivan's design philosophy was always from follows function, and that is that all the ornaments and the framing white glass windows on the street level were meant to display a merchandise and attract the shoppers so that everyone can see what is inside. And the face above features are more subdued gear-like pattern and designed to bring the light into the upper floors where there were no customers and only passing birds. So he really wanted to have light where the customers are, and where there's no customers, there's also no need to have so much light. So we're walking now to the next stop, which is just a block away. And I'm very excited to get to know what hell is the history of that building. So when you guys are seeing that building, I'm gonna tell what's the history with that and what's the name of it. But before we do that, let's look around and see. So we see a famous picture. I know that he's very famous, so that guy in that picture is very famous, but I don't remember the name. Let's look around the house. So we have a lot of mosaic. So we are now on State and Washington Street, and this is the famous building. And let's see what I can tell you in this. What about this building? So here we have mosaics again and decorations. We have a lot of glass on the first floor. I think this is a hotel. You see a bar. And this is the famous building, because I think this is a hotel, so we don't go inside. The next building on my tour was the Reliance building that was completed in 1895 and was really a marvel of its time, because it presented a number of windows that were really much defying the norms of the late 1800s. The building was designed by Daniel Burnham and John Wellborn Roots firm, and it's a 14-story building that has really a unique story origin. It was originally commissioned by an elevator entrepreneur for a new building on State and Washington, but this project always faced challenges with the existing tenants on the upper floors because they didn't want to leave the building until the lease expired in 1894. And to circumvent this issue, workers lifted the top floors of the existing building to allow the construction of the new foundation and first floor to commence too. But during the construction, Root passed away in 1891, so to leave then Charles Edward to take then over the project. And when the project was finally finished in 1895 and all the tenants have been relocated, they had finally been able to finish the project. But in the mid 20th century, the building had a little bit a neglect time period. So they had a very huge restoration in the 1990s to really get back the flair of this old historical building. I saw something very weird, and that's that big red thingy there. It looks for me like a kind of old fire alarm. I mean, it doesn't have a bell or something, but I'm wondering if that was, or it was used to be something like an alarm, and now they just kept it as decoration. Lucky our next stop is right across the street, and this time we have the big Macy building. So from what I see, it's the Macy store on the first 2 floors. I never have been in it, but because we are on this walking tour, we are also not only look from outside, but some buildings we are visiting inside here. And this one is one of them. The next building that I visited was Macy's on State Street, that is formerly called Marshall Fields. And it's a really famous building because it contains a 1,600 square feet mosaic with 1.6 million pieces of glass. And it's called after his wife, also the Tiffany Dome. And because Mr. Tiffany, so it's named after Mr. Tiffany, who were constructing this whole and supervising this whole process, because it took a very long time to create it, because they create really a unique color and texture. So the building was completed in 1907 and was really a masterpiece by Louis C. Tiffany, because it put in all this glass and put it together in a unique colorway. And then we have, according Jeffrey A. Brun, the Marshall Fields was not merely a place for shopping. It was really meant to be a public landmark and the spectacle when it was time for opening. The mosaic is really serve as a visual testament to the grandeur and spectacle of that was associated with the Marshall Field, and it's now with the Macy's too, to attract also people for the landmark and not just for shopping. I just was in Macy's and it was incredible to see like the mosaics on the top of one side of the building. I'm gonna tell you in this second more about both sides and my impressions, but stick around and see what I saw there. So we are now on the way to the next spot, and that one is just around the corner. So I'm very excited to see what we see now after Macy's, because we only have a couple more stops left. I decided that I will skip Millennium Park for now, and I will show you after a couple pictures of why. But because the most part of the park with the Bean or the Cloud Gate, how it's originally named, is closed, I don't really think it makes sense to go there. So we will skip the Millennium Park, but spend a little bit more time on the other spots. So our next stop is the Culture Center. Let's see what we figure out and if we can go inside. If not, I will just give a brief facts and impressions from the outside. So now we are on the Culture Center. The title, how they call it, is Chicago Public Library. House number 78. And it's a massive building, I guess. If it's not just decor, I think the marmor stones that are made, all the structure. We have again a lot of mosaics that we see. Some pillars that frame window frames and a lot of decorations. So on the top we see a lot of lions. Let's see if I can make it a little closer. Stop was the Chicago Culture Center, that is also known as the People's Place. And it's really a landmark in the Loop that is really showing us his detail and his vintage charm. It was completed in 1897 and was to be one of the city's first permanent central public libraries. It was designed by the same people like the Art Institute, Shapley, Rutan, and Coleridge. It is, on the outside we have the really 3 feet thick walls that are really stunning and really big, and then we have also this 2 stunning stained glass domes in the interior. And then we have the Preston Barley Hall that has a 38-foot wide dome that is made out of Tiffany glass, that's also featuring around 13K pieces of glass that are arranged in a fish scale pattern. The Grand Army of the Republican Hall and the Ratunia House, another dome spanning or 40 feet wide, and in the 1940s it was really covered the dome to protect it from any water damages, and in 2022 it was then replaced with a transparent cover to allow then the natural light to come in and illuminate the hall. And then the lead by restoration architect Gunny Harbour really put in a lot of efforts to make sure to document and really also by hand cleaning all the 60,000 glass pieces. Today, the Culture Center is really a hub for a lot of public arts related events, programming, including music, dance, theater, and art exhibitions. So like I said earlier, we are gonna skip Millennium Park because they're still under construction, especially the area around the Bean. And I guess it's a good idea to skip it for today, and we come back at a later time when we're finally done with the construction, and then we can really compare it how it looked before, but right now we skip it. So here we see it starts to get dark, so there's Millennium Park, and then we see the Cloud Gate or the Bean all around the fence. Last time I saw that Bean around the fence was during COVID time, so it kind of reminds me of that too. So we are walking towards there. We see the famous Chicago Theater sign. We see the Macy's green clock, and they're all in the background. We see one of the 2 corn buildings that also have a very interesting history, because I heard that they should be like a city in a city because they have everything inside the building. I'm not so sure how accurate this information is because one of my friends told me that, but it can be that that's right, but that's I'm gonna figure out. So we are on the way to the next landmark. The last landmark I visited was the Culture Center of Chicago, and now they say on this point we have to be on State Street, and the street goes along the river, and from here I see already one of the court buildings that is a little bit hiding, but I'm excited then to tell you guys the review about that spot and what is so meaningful about it. As we continue our walk, we came to the corn buildings, where I recall to remember to have known that it was kind of a city in a city. What I didn't know when I was there was that it's called Marina City, that was designed by the architect Bertrand Goldberg and was completed in 1967. And was really a city in a city, because the idea was that the residential units have everything they need in there, such as theater, a bowling alley, shops, boat docks, pioneering a mixed-use concept to attract urban dwellers back to the city. So it was really a way to attract them back. And Goldberg's design philosophy rejected right angles in a fear of organic curval shapes, and also so really much a tremendous sunflower kind of way. And he really wanted to create something that's putting in something unique to the Chicago skyline. So I think the landmark that we are supposed to see here is this bridge that was built in 1949. We got a small boat, and the bridge is called Bateman Carl Guidor Memorial Bridge. And why it's dedicated, I will tell you later. But here a little bit an overview. So we are now on bridge on State Street. There we have Wabash Avenue with Trump Tower, the London House, and the clock. And then on the other side we have the Whirlpool. There on the right, the two corn buildings, and a lot of skyscrapers on the other side of the bridge. We are now on the Veterans Memorial, and because it's a memorial, we are getting quiet. It's nobody here, but we should remember on the people who sacrificed and died in a war. Wars are never nice. So after this stop, we will continue our walk again on Michigan Avenue, and we are going now to the building of the Chicago Tribune. So we are passing the corn buildings, the 7th Church on that side, the Trump building, and the Riverwalk. And I will put me back when we are there. That's the last I'll ever be. You really don't mind. So we are now very close on Michigan Street, and I found something very interesting, because I never know that this double-side bridge is called the Sable Bridge. And that's a very fun fact, because the Sable, even that he was not the first one here, he's so like a main figure of the city. And that's something that I realize a lot, that a lot of people famous people especially get dedicated a street, like Ida B. Wells, DeSable, and many others too. And they are all have history. So we have the London House. So we are crossing the bridge to go to the Chicago Tribune headquarters. There, the bridge again has these pillars. It has 1, 2, 3, and 4. It is written in Latin numbers here. There we have the Apple store right next to the river. And let's go closer to the Chicago Tribune and see what this building has to offer. So we are now on the Chicago Tribune, but before I show you that building, I show you what I found here. So here we have the building of the Chicago Tribune. And we see here already again, so like small pictures and mosaics around the windows. I think I see a lot on the old buildings of Chicago, especially the historical ones that they built, that they wanted to stay. And we have there a big writing of Chicago Tribune with their logo. And we have here a couple other things, the Apple Store. And I will show you guys some pictures and give you more facts. So this is now very interesting that we are on the Chicago Tribune, on the tower that was founded the Chicago Tribune was founded in 1847, and this building is already almost 100 years old. And I want to show you guys what I found it very interesting. I don't know if you guys see it so well, but maybe I'm switching the view and then I show you. So a couple years ago I went here along with one of my friends, and we had found it so fascinating to touch all the stones. And when I saw this, I just remember on the time we walked along here and we touched around all the stones. There is a stone of my home country, the Bryan-Chillon from Switzerland, and what do you have? A little piece of Westminster Abbey in London. I think this is historically very relevant because to have stones integrate into a historical building, it's not just giving the building more history, it also gives a kind of feeling like gifts from different parts of the world, and it's saying that the city is connected all around. Next building that I visited was the Tribune Tower, that was constructed as a part of the 75th anniversary of the Chicago Tribune in 1922. And the winning design was by the New York architects John Mote Howells and Raymond Hood. They wanted to create a kind of neo-Gothic style and feature kind of giving back the medieval churches by really make a kind of cathedral-like appearance. In 2022, the building underwent a construction into condos, but it's still having a kind of little home for the journalism. And the developers presented and restored the lobby to really put in and preserve what has been there. And the lobby is really a large relief map that it's showing up how the Tribune has covered over the years. It has a lot of ornamental creatures around it, where here it's not really like on cathedrals that it's go for religion. Here's more going to journalism, and the kind of including also an owl with a camera or an elephant detecting scandals or featuring embodying the truth or rumor. It's really to show up there. Then we come to the stones that I show around all the time, and these are really from famous landmark and structures from around the world. And the idea was really to have a kind of physical connection to all these historical and cultural landmarks that are kind of reflecting the Tribune's mission to provide a diverse and comprehensive coverage of all the global events and stories. We are pretty lucky because the next building is right across the street, and it's the Hotel Intercontinental. And let's see what we find out about that. It's a high structure. Let's wait for crossing the street. So it's less like imposing because it has the less ornaments, but there in the middle it has a lot. Unfortunately my camera is not really good, so let's see how good quality of pictures I can make. So the Intercontinental Chicago Hotel is a historical hotel that was first known as Medina Athletic Club, and it really goes back already to 1929. It was designed as a place for gathering all the members of Shirin's fraternal organization. And also we have on the outside so really limestone facade that it's adorned with relief sculptures that are kind of featuring a pseudo-Mesopotamian myth. Even before it was finished, it has a lot to offer, like a mini golf course, a bowling alley, a pool, and much more. The club, when it was still a club, it really faces a lot of criticism because it really has so much extravagant things, and they struggled to fill up all the guest rooms and ended up with bankruptcy in 1934. And after that the building was renamed and constructed to the Continental Hotel and a Town Club of Chicago. Underwent a lot of transformations and was then transformed in 1989 to the Intercontinental Hotel that we know today. Some details have been restored and some features are not there anymore and can not be seen anymore because they don't have put it back. So we are now on the way to our last stop, and right now I'm on the way to the 360 tower. You're just passing the big Starbucks, the biggest Starbucks in the world, the Reserve, who is right there in the corner. Last time I've been there, I made very fun pictures with the fire inside. But I guess they didn't have to turn it on. But let's see what else we will discover.
Something more than friends.
So we are about to pass the water tower. There he is. Very cute little water tower. And the water tower place. And then we are at the 360 building. The last stop on our tour. It's a long time that I've been the last time on the top of the 360 building. I think it's over 2 years now. But it's very cloudy today, so we will not go upstairs. Because I remember last time it was a weather that was more or less okay. And the view was not great. So we are staying on the bottom and we will observe the building from downstairs. Here on 360 Chicago, on the big tower with a view of all three sides. I don't know yet, but eventually I'm gonna put in some footage about the time I've been on the tower, because why not? It gives a little bit more time to tell more about the history and importance of this little friend that is actually pretty huge. Our last stop was on 875 North Michigan Avenue. that was formerly known as the John Hancock Center and was held once the title of the Chicago's tallest building. It was completed in 1969 and was renovated then also by a lot of architects like Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, and a lot of other people who lead this whole project to really make a new skyscraper out of it, because they really revolutionized the skyscraper design to make it taller and really to give in more efficiency. And we have a 100 stories building with a height of 1,128 feet, or 1,500 feet with the antennas, that are currently on the ranking for as the 5th tallest building in the city. And then on the 94th floor we have the 360 Chicago observation deck that offers all visitors a panoramic view of the city with a featuring of glass lookout that tilts forward over the city for the more adventurous people. And we have then people like the photographer Peter Chai that have captured very stunning images of the city from 875 North Michigan in diverse weather conditions, and really showing the beauty of this building and its significance.